Hello, everyone. So, immigration is once again in the news, and people seem to have a lot of opinions on it. Some of the opinions you may not realize are opinions because people put them forward as facts. I'm going to be straight with everyone. If there is one thing I am adamant on, something that I will never budge on for my entire life, is the concept of illegal immigration being an okay thing. So, let's first talk about these detention camps, Trump camps, whatever you want to call it, the ones that are housing the people attempting to gain asylum, or not gain asylum and just trying to sneak in, and the government has to process them. I can't tell you the motive of every single person who has been rounded up, and neither can anyone who is for the illegals gaining asylum. None of them can tell you across the board what each and every person's intention was now that they are caught and in the holding facility. So, right off the bat, they could have been MS-13, they could have been human traffickers, but that's what the purpose of the processing facility is. So let's talk about the family separation thing, because I know after I make my case for it, people will leave a dislike, leave a nasty comment, and move on with their day. Attempting to enter a country unlawfully is, according to the U.S. Code, Title 8, improper entry by an alien follows these rules. A. Improper time or place, avoidance of examination or inspection, misrepresentation and concealment of facts. Any alien who 1. Enters or attempts to enter the United States at any time or place other than as designated by immigration officers, or 2. Eludes examination or inspection by immigration officers, or 3. Attempts to enter or obtains entry to the United States by a willfully false or misleading representation, or the willful concealment of a material fact, shall, for the first commission of any such offense, be fined under Title 18 or imprisoned not more than 6 months, or both, and, for a subsequent commission of any such offense, be fined under Title 18 or imprisoned not more than 2 years, or both. B. Improper time and place, civil penalties. Any alien who is apprehended while entering or attempting to enter the United States at a time or place other than as designated by immigration officers shall be subject to the penalty of 1. At least $50 and not more than $250 for each such entry or attempted entry, or 2. Twice the amount specified in paragraph 1 in the case of an alien who has not been previously subject to a civil penalty under this subsection. Civil penalties under this subsection are in addition to, and not in lieu of, any criminal or other civil penalties that may be imposed. C. Marriage fraud. Any individual who knowingly enters into a marriage for the purposes of evading any provision of the immigration laws shall be imprisoned for not more than 5 years or fined not more than $250,000 or both. And finally, D. Immigration-related entrepreneurship fraud. Any individual who knowingly establishes a commercial enterprise for the purpose of evading any provision of the immigration laws shall be imprisoned for not more than 5 years, fined in accordance with Title 18, or both. So that's if they're trying to approach illegally. Now, what if they're attempting to gain asylum? Because that's what everyone seems to want to say all these people who are in these processing facilities are there for. None of them are here illegally. They're all trying to gain asylum. Okay, let's talk about the asylum stuff then. And this is according to the American Immigration Council website. The docs PDF and site are linked below. There are 2 different kinds of asylum. There's affirmative asylum and there's defensive asylum. Affirmative asylum is defined as a person who is not in removal proceedings, getting deported, may affirmatively apply for asylum through U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, a division of the Department of Homeland Security, and if the USCIS asylum officer does not grant the asylum application and the applicant does not have a lawful immigration status, he or she is referred to the immigration court for removal proceedings, where he or she may renew the request for asylum through the defensive process and appear before an immigration judge, meaning that person gets to go up to a port of entry, declare they want asylum, and then they will talk to an asylum officer or a judge. And if they say, no, get out of here, you can then apply defensively. Defensive asylum. A person who is in removal proceedings may apply for asylum defensively by filing the application with an immigration judge at the Executive Office for Immigration Review in the Department of Justice. In other words, asylum is applied for as a defense against removal from the U.S. Unlike the criminal court system, EOIR does not provide appointed counsel for individuals in immigration court, even if they are unable to retain an attorney on their own. As you might suspect, some of the Miranda rights don't apply to people who aren't born under the U.S. Constitution. It continues, with or without counsel, an asylum seeker has the burden of proving that he or she meets the definition of a refugee, which I will go into in a second. Asylum seekers often provide substantial evidence throughout the affirmative and defensive processes, demonstrating either past persecution or that they will have a well-founded fear of future persecution in their home country. However, the individual's own testimony is usually critical to his or her own asylum determination. And just to make sure everyone is aware, to be defined as a refugee, you must be a person who is unable or unwilling to return to his or her own home country and cannot obtain protection in that country due to past persecution or a well-founded fear of being persecuted in the future on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. This is based on the U.S. immigration law and the Refugee Act of 1980. Okay, now asylum does not get approved overnight. The overall estimate seems to be about 4 years, with March of 2018 having over 318,000 affirmative cases pending. That's not even including defensive cases, and now with all the people who are mass showing up and getting put into the processing facilities, that number is sure to go up and that time to get much longer. But this means that the DHS and the USCIS wasn't just sitting around twiddling their thumbs when all of a sudden, oh my god, look at all these potential asylum seekers. I don't want to deal with them, let's just put them in Arizona Auschwitz. No, these people literally tied the government's hands when they showed up in droves trying to escape their home countries. Nobody is simply waiting around to take in migrants. And that's the simple truth, okay? So, what about the families being separated? Well, okay, originally it was considered and petitioned by Jeff Sessions when all this started to become mass media. His zero tolerance policy. John Kelly, White House Chief of Staff, agreed that this was going to be a deterrent, but the process had been going on before then. But he wanted to make sure that people didn't want to just show up and think that the U.S. was going to give them a free pass. And when asked then what he wanted to do with the children, John Kelly seemed as if he had not a good idea, and he literally said foster care or something. Apparently it's more like a boarding school daycare situation with entertainment, shelter, food. I mean, they literally are teaching the kids. They play soccer. These kids aren't necessarily in an internment camp. They're more like at a daycare. At least that's what the accommodations appear like. And questions as to how many it deterred all but went out the window because of how poorly the optics are for this moment. Now, originally these capturing processes weren't just introduced. Ironically, many Democrats actually have very strict border positions because of their desire to keep a position of gatekeeper should potential voters want to get in. See Maxine Waters and her hand in the cookie jar moment when talking about Syrian refugees and her goals for her career. Mark Dice made a video on it. It was actually quite interesting. But on topic, these people crossed the desert, risked death, risked getting shot before they even got to the border, and if they weren't trying to approach at a checkpoint, all with children at their sides. All these people made a conscious effort with children to enter into a dangerous circumstance. Now, I cannot for the life of me consider this a worthwhile solution to the problem. And here's the deal. Let's say they're all telling the truth, right? Let's say every single one of them would be killed on sight if they returned to their countries of origin. What is the U.S. supposed to do? Just let people come in, no money, no records, just show up, and then what? Work? Get a house, live their life in the United States? Okay, if your initial response to that is yes, then I'm going to guess you really haven't thought it through. Most of these people are unskilled laborers. meaning that the jobs that they can do are unskilled labor. As the job market begins to automate manual tasks ordinarily held by unskilled laborers, these jobs become more and more scarce. So we let's go with the number of pending cases, 318,000 people into the country. That means that the US would now be boasting a number of 327 million people. It would take some years to put all these people into the system so the government could begin collecting taxes on the new citizens and actually end up costing the US citizen more in taxes just to get everything done. I mean, think about it. If we are paying for the people in the centers to be kept up right now, I'm sure that local food shelters and nonprofits are helping out. But the implications for the economic health of the nation could be in serious jeopardy if this is a sudden change where we just suddenly let all these people in. We have examples across the European continent of effects of mass migration, some good, most bad. As much of a bleeding heart as you may be, there is no feasible way to accomplish what you want without massive job loss or economic hits to the US if we just accept everyone at the border. I'm sorry, but it's just how I see it. So what do? We continue the same way we have been and process everyone as needed, and in this situation, we need to house these people, a large amount of people, in an enclosed environment where they can be kept under watch, because they're not supposed to be here to begin with. And so while we process them, they need to be put somewhere. Most people will agree that the optics for the situation, not so good. No one wants to see kids in quote-unquote cages, unless you're a really, really fucked up person. But there's no other option unless you want them to just have buses to take these people around and around in a circle in the middle of the desert, or just drop them off back again and say, we'll call you. Like, this is a solution right now, what we have. It may not be a good one, but it's something, and that's better than perhaps some of the ideas that the progressive media might have. Now, things have changed recently. Trump has signed an executive order to separate families less, but again, they still need to be interned. They still need to be somewhere. They're not free while they're on US soil until they're processing hearings and the asylum officers decide what their status will be. So we really haven't fixed the overall problem. Just the outrage of children being separated will be mitigated by those people who are only upset because kids are being separated from their parents. Maybe their parents. We don't even know if they are their parents because there's no IDs or proof. I think I'm going to leave this video here because I'm tired, and this is a troublesome scenario to try and work out after I get home from work. So I'll have to continue this another time, hopefully with some more details and some more updates. Thank you guys, and I'll see you soon.